Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name is Jesse. This is the Auditorium. I react to video game music as a musician myself, and today is a request for Anonymous, and they requested Pictionary, and the song is just called the title screen theme, so it's probably untitled, from the Nintendo Entertainment System. Well, it's an extremely short song. It's a minute 30, so I might have to hear it more than once, but we'll see. And the only thing I know is the year 1990, and the composer is Follin, who I've checked out a little bit, and he's kind of a legend. Anyways, I've never heard of Pictionary. Now that I think about it, I don't think I've done much Nintendo, like, original console on the channel. Anything Nintendo is new to me because I didn't grow up with Nintendo at all. But I'm trying to think of how many games I've done or soundtracks that I've heard from the actual original Nintendo, and I can't think of many, or if any. Anywho, Pictionary title screen. Hell yeah, let's go. Chiptune. Wow, the emulated symbol. This would be like a guitar. There's a lot going on. Wow, we even get a whole outro. Let me hear it again. It's pretty short. Let's hear it again. The intro's cool. It starts with the single note, and then goes. It gets doubled right away. Let's count how many melodies. There's already been 2 now. It's a 3rd one now. It's been the first 10 seconds. 5. No, so 5. A new pattern. 6. 7. For different voicings, but still, there's a harmony. So let's count that. 8. Lead. 9. We're just counting layers. Same lead. That's so cool. 10. 11. Bump. Dude. Let's just round to like 10 or 11 different like voicings that we heard, and I think there was even more, but limitations are on full display here, but it makes it cool though. It has this charm to it. And there's one thing that came to mind when I was hearing this, and I haven't heard much Tim Follin, but I've heard like maybe, I want to say like 3 songs or so, enough to where I can kind of like see his style. and why he's regarded as this kind of like legend because it's such a unique style. No one was doing stuff like this, I feel like, in when he was around, or not many. But the one thing that came to mind is like I felt like Tim Follin walks so Mick Gordon can run, because if this was made, like 30 years later, it would sound like some Doom stuff, or like some Mick Gordon stuff with the just technicalities and all these melodies going off everywhere and this kind of halting, jittering rhythms. It's pretty bizarre. So we're in full chiptune mode here, 1990. I wonder how old my viewers were. 1990, your host was 1. So I wasn't even aware of what was happening in the world. But the NES, again, I have never owned an NES. The only thing I've owned ever Nintendo related at all was a Game Boy Color. And that was like 97, whenever it came out. And that was it. Everything else has been like PlayStation, Sega, mostly PlayStation. So I love checking out Nintendo stuff because, it's kind of where it all started. Well, I don't know. Let me rephrase that. I would say like the Atari kind of started. I'm talking like commercial success. Then there was like the Famicom, and then the Nintendo. But I think the Nintendo is like the one where, when I think of like video game console, that's probably the most iconic, and not just like an opinion. I think just from like mass appeal, everyone knows of like Nintendo, the original Nintendo. There's people that consider like every console a Nintendo. You know what I'm talking about? Like boomers will be like, well, I don't know if they say it anymore, but for example, like I remember growing up and on my PlayStation 1, my mom would call it a Nintendo type of thing. So it just has like that iconic history. Anyways, so I was always curious what the music really sounded like, and I feel like I'm barely scratching the surface. Because when I think of Nintendo, the only thing I really think of is like the Mario theme song that everybody knows. And I'm trying to think on this channel if I've done anything else. I'm sure I have, but maybe not. I don't know. But I was expecting a limited chiptune type of sound. But this song reminds me of kind of one thing of why this channel has kind of gone up in popularity, and why I've met the people that I've met in this community is because it's songs like this that can stay with you for a lifetime, and you'll remember it forever. And whether you're going to remain a fan of video game music or kind of go your own way with it, it's one of those things that especially at a young age, impressionable age, if you're hearing this, you're going to remember that. You're going to remember that sound, and it immediately puts you there. And it's also the main menu theme, so it's pretty much the definition of this kind of nostalgic timepiece. And it's such a interesting thing to think about, because title screen music, which I've heard a couple of title screen themes, they're so underrated, I feel, because you're there for, I don't know what, there's probably a couple options, maybe new game, load options, and especially in these days, maybe like who knows, very limited time, and then you're not going to be there for a minute and a half, maybe, unless you left it running while you go do something and you hear it in the background a lot, which is possible. But most people would probably have never even heard of that whole song, and maybe not even heard of that ending, that it had a proper ending. I'm sure it loops, or not, actually, now that I think about it. I think there are some title screen themes where it'll play and then it'll just stop and then there's nothing. And you just hear the ding 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 of the controller. But maybe it loops, but by the way it sounded and the way it ended, maybe not. Anyway, so I feel like they're extremely underrated and often don't get heard all the way through, which is why I wanted to hear it twice and to catch everything. So the main thing I'm saying here is there's really no reason for that song to be as complex as it was, besides Tim just wanting to. This is what I get from Tim, is that he kind of gives every song that like he's grateful to be on the project type of feel. And instead of just, like for example, if we just heard, let's just say this. Those 7 seconds, right? That could have just been looped infinitely, and probably no one would have batted an eye. But that was just the first 7 seconds of the entire piece. You know what I'm saying? So like they added this part, and then that part, and then that part, and then a harmony to that part, and then another layer, and then, you know what I mean? It's like, I'm not saying it's like unnecessary, but it's like kind of unheard of, especially at that time. And that's probably what, made a name for himself, and also getting, Nintendo's name on the map as well. It's not like they needed him, but I'm just saying, it adds to that whole, what you think of when it comes to Nintendo, I guess. It's my assumption. What else did I say? I really like, even though there's like, even though it has limitations, it almost feels like it doesn't because of how much is going on. And I mean, we counted like 10, 11 different types of melodies. But not only that, is like he really worked on the instrumentation of it. You can hear the cymbals, even though there's just a bunch of static white notes, but it's supposed to emulate cymbals, and your brain recognizes it as cymbals, so it works. And then a little one part where it sounded kind of like an electric guitar chugging, like you could tell that's supposed to be an electric guitar. So the staying power of this music goes beyond just this menu. I can hear this now in 2023 and as a guitar player and be like, I could learn that. It's they're notes. It doesn't have to be on guitar, but you could learn these melodies, especially that first one, that very first intro. You could learn that on a piano, anything. So it's the staying power is just crazy. There's so much melody and just so much to do with the song, and it was only 1 minute 35 seconds. So don't know by the looks of it. I'm actually just paying attention to the thumbnail now. It says Pictionary, the game of video quick draw power play series. Just based on the image of this game, it looks like the most basic non-video game I could imagine. And I'm not trying to like talk crap on it, but it looks like you know what this looks like? Those kind of games where like you played in like elementary school and like on a Windows 95 computer or something. Like a learning tool type of thing. I don't know if it's supposed to be that or it's Pictionary, you know what I mean? So I'm hearing the app music with this, and I know Nintendo did, dive into like kind of educational stuff here and there, but I don't know. I mean, this has 1.5 million views. People own this game, and they're aware of it. I never heard about it, but it's pretty interesting. At the end of the day, the whole aura of Nintendo is kind of intimidating to me because it's such a prominent part of video game history, and it's like something I completely missed out on. I wasn't gaming this early. I didn't start gaming until like 1995 or so, but that was Sega. So my life was like Sega, Genesis does what Nintendo, all that. And I've only heard about Nintendo, and I've known about all their stuff like Mario and Zelda and all that, but they were just, so it's cool to experience them a different way years later. But in a way, I'm kind of, it's a two-sided thing, double-edged sword, I should say. I'm envious of people that grew up with this because you have a nostalgic factor, and that can really make a song really just skyrocket. You have the nostalgia, the memories, and coming home from school, all that. And then on the other side, and so I'm envious of that. I wish I could have experienced that. I'll never get that anymore, or ever. But I can now appreciate it also as an adult and as a musician. So I can still experience it in my own way, just in a different way that maybe you're experiencing it. But then again, these videos have old and new viewers, so it's fun to see. It's gonna be fun to see the comments of like, oh my god, I remember this, and the other people are like, what the hell was that? I'm only 20 years old. This sounds weird. I'm very curious of how this. I mean, I think it holds up, but I'm really curious as to people that like the younger generation, what they think of this stuff. This is the roots. And what's funny is the Nintendo came like way later after the Atari, and that sounds even more limited. Anywho, nice trip down a memory lane, even though I never experienced it. But I can feel it. I can feel the early '90s out of that. So yeah, thank you to the anonymous requester. Thanks to everyone that you see here. Thanks to you for watching. My name is Jesse. Take it easy.